It feels good to be able to watch Isekai Quartet once again. Not even just be able to watch Isekai Quartet with four of my favorite franchises in modern anime, but to have another one join the crew with the Shield Hero, which was one of my favorite anime of last year. I loved it, it was just such a great adventure, and I knew it would be a perfect fit for Isekai Quartet, and this was a big reason a lot of people were excited. Of course, Isekai Quartet, it kind of took the anime community by storm. People loved it, eat it all up. People like, this shouldn't work, but somehow all the characters feel like the writing was pulled from their source material, but now written as if Konosuba or Overlord characters, Saga of Tani the Evil. You got all these great shows, ReZero, now Shield Hero, all linking up into one, and I have to say, they took me for basically a ride here, because I thought Shield Hero joining the main classroom, right? How would they keep calling it Isekai Quartet now that they're going to have 5 different series in one classroom? Open up the door, we see our boy Naofumi, shuts the door, no, he's going to class 1 there. As far as I know, basically class 1, now with Naofumi there, I think they'll probably have a quartet too. It's like, what a great way to just like blue balls us immediately, being like, okay, big series, no, we're getting the cat, and then Shield Hero's just leaving. I was like, are they actually just gonna tease us like that? I wasn't even assuming that he was going to a different class. I was just like, oh man, immediately I was worried. It's like, were they really just screwing with us? Was Shield Hero not actually fully joining? But man, that was just such a great bait and switch. It was just completely fantastic to just see these characters again. And honestly, Shield Hero wasn't even that big of a aspect of this episode. Of course, by the end and the little bit in the beginning was definitely Shield Hero focus, but I gotta say, just seeing the old cast of characters just bicker and just, it is so mundane and simplistic to see characters argue about switching seats as you have Overlord characters arguing about which seat is best and how you want to have the optimal seat so you can pay attention but still glance at your lord's head. You know, you got all those like little moments which are just so amazing, and one of the big things that I loved about the first season was Overlord was like the one that I was the most fuzzy on. Like, I watched like the first 2 seasons of Overlord, but it's been a while, I wasn't all that familiar with it, and I'm still not. However, what I've loved about Isekai Quartet is the more you know the source materials, the more you love the show. But even someone who only has knowledge on maybe ReZero or only Konosuba will still always get a kick out of it because the just general dialogue obviously has deeper meaning and references, but it's always going to be enough to give you a big grin or just make you laugh and just belt out and just roll on the floor. That's what's always great. I mean, you literally have one of those deeper meaning jokes where you have nobody in this classroom allowing Aqua to be considered a goddess. This is all just like, okay, you know, delusions can only go so far. We understand you got your religion, but you're not a goddess. And then, of course, you got characters like Cosmo, who's just going to be like, yeah, she's just insane. And the only person in that situation who truly believed that she was a goddess was Ainz. This is the biggest burn for her because of how much she hates the undead. That's what I mean. I love it how you have those jokes where if you understand the materials in terms of this case, it's Konosuba and Overlord, you understand the deeper meaning there, but had you had no idea of Overlord or maybe even Konosuba to a degree, you would have something where you're like, oh, that's still funny because no one's believing she's a goddess, but probably actually is. And that's just what was so great about jumping right back into this. Last night I rewatched the final 2 episodes of the first season, which is something I've been doing a lot more of, rather than just rewatching an anime in its entirety if it's been a year or so. Obviously, this is a very short series, so I easily could have just rewatched it and it only took a couple of hours, but I like to just rewatch the last couple episodes, remind me what happened at the end. In case of season 1, it was that little tournament where it's like, oh, if you win, you get to go home, but then it was just all blue balls, be like, oh no, I said you might be able to go home. So it was just nice to get refreshed, and then of course, I mean, Isekai Quartet, it has a very chibi presentation. It's not going to change that much from season to season, especially when the last season was only a few months back, 6 months back, give or take, or whenever it was, spring of last year. So it was still nice to just jump back in and see how they once again took something that was pretty serious, it was pretty dramatic in its original source, that being the Shield Hero, and how they chibiified this anime. And I love how you get something that is so in character for the Shield Hero. Naofumi, Raphtalia, Philo, where you got something coming their way, going to kill them, this dangerous baseball, which was an incredibly powerful strike. And then of course you have those air shields popping in. Logically, these characters had enough time to move as the shield basically took the brute force of it. They could have just, you know, stood there, be like, oh, okay, he's got it, and just walk away casually. But for the love of the joke, they let them just stand there shaking in fear as Naofumi was, Naofumi making sure that his party was safe as he's the shield hero. I just love how they just can immediately make you say, this feels like the source material, but of course, applied to this situation where they're just general high school students, they're seeing all these different characters that they don't think are heroes or they don't trust or don't know what to think about them. It's so great to see how they took those situations, and I love that. I think it's just going to be so fun to not only just see this season, but I think at this point it's pretty clear there's probably going to be a lot of seasons of Isekai Quartet, and I remember before the first season aired, a lot of people were like, there's no way for it to introduce more characters as it's a quartet. That's 4, there's no other that you could add. But I think the idea of classrooms and having more and more classrooms either pop up, like I think it was like in the middle of season 1 or maybe even closer to the end of season 1, randomly it's like, oh, did we even know there was a classroom? No, the classroom wasn't there before. So what they could easily do is they could take stuff like the Cautious Hero, things like that, and just keep introducing more and more classrooms to grow this cast. And I feel like whether you have a very serious narrative, something like ReZero or the Shield Hero, you can easily apply them to a chibi setting. And in Naofumi's case, he's the most serious person at this point in time, which I can already in my head create fanfiction of what the hell is Naofumi going to say to Kazuma or even Subaru. There's so many ways for that to either bring them down or just turn the Shield Hero into a more joyful fellow. And that's what's so great about this. I just had a grin watching this. You can pause at any moment because this isn't an anime that moves all that much. It's these very chibi designs and they just have these ridiculous reactions. But every single time it was so great. I mean, one of the funniest parts of this episode is when you now have 3 pets because Philo's now part of the stable. And then you got our girl Aqua just be like, oh, I now have an excuse to kill this bastard. And just like watching the reactions, being like, what in the actual hell as casual dialogue is playing? Like, that's the brilliance of the comedy. It is so well written for being how basic it actually is. Just something I've always appreciated, and basically everyone that I've talked to who's seen Isekai Quartet agrees, like, it's insane how well the character writing for all these series actually feels like this is how it would be for their original source. Often when you have crossovers, it feels like sometimes it works okay, but you can definitely tell this was a different mind taking the characters that we love so much. But here, even with now 5 source materials interlinking into this one mundane reverse isekai, they still feel like this is how Naofumi, this is how Subaru, or Kazuma, or Aqua, all these characters should act put into this exact situation. Of course, they wouldn't be put in this situation in the original source, but still, it just gave me a goddamn grin, and I was like, this is so good. I remember when I was first watching Isekai Quartet, I tried watching it weekly for a little bit there. I was like, no, we're gonna wait for it to end, then we'll binge it. And even then, binging it just wasn't enough to fill my needs, so I was very happy about a season 2 being announced. But I think this is going to be one of those shows because they run half the length of a regular anime episode. I'll probably at least watch 2 times every week because it is such a great way to perk you up, just make you laugh, make you charmed, and just look at anime in the most simplistic form, but be so great because it nails exactly what it's aiming for without trying to blow you away with a lot of sakuga or spectacle and flash and things like that. Just raw character dialogue. And is always hilarious. I loved this first episode. It was everything I was hoping for and a lot of surprises. I mean, I don't think many people thought, Shield Hero would join the fray and then just slam the door and walk to another class. Maybe some people did, but I definitely didn't. The only thing I can really say was a disappointment with the first season was the runtime was fine. Half an anime episode was perfectly good for what it was aiming to be. However, when you take into consideration the opening and ending of season 1, that took up 3 minutes give or take. So you really only had 9 minutes every week to embrace this series. And for a lot of shorts and things like that, that's more than enough. But when you have so many different properties, there's so many ways to make an episode honestly run 20 minutes if you wanted to. So I really do hope, and I'm sure we are going to still have an opening and ending, but I hope they shorten it or just do what they did in this episode. Let the story continue to unfold as we hear the opening, or what I assume was the opening. I'm sure we are going to go back to the season 1 template of a minute opening, a minute ending, something like that. But even if we can just get the ending as we watch more story play out, I think 10 minutes would be a lot better than just 9 minutes like we got pretty much with every episode of season 1. It's not a big deal, not a lot of people will care because, if you're watching season 2, you loved how season 1 functioned, but I definitely think there's room for improvement in terms of its runtime, and based on this episode, it was perfect because we just started the episode and ended in 12 minutes, and we still got the opening, but we still got to see actual storytelling. That's all I really hope to see different from this season compared to last. Otherwise, the first season was goddamn perfect, and we're just adding on to that perfect formula, so I can't complain. I just want to see more of this wonderful series, and I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling that. Like, the more runtime we get for this anime, the better, but just don't extend it to the point where the joke runs out. And so far, they're doing a top-notch job, so I'm pretty excited for more. But let me know your thoughts for fans of either Shield Hero, maybe you have no love for Shield Hero, didn't even watch Shield Hero, or just, really love Isekai Quartet. What did you think of this first episode, or episode 13, depending on how you're keeping track of the episodes? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.